So, Ron has an incredible story, history, long-standing bank career. But in his story, we're also going to hear about passion, vision, and an incredible customer service. Is that all right? With that being said, Ron, come on up.
I just love people on the front row. So I'm so glad you're here. These ladies are a lot cuter than you are. I'm just saying. Nice to meet you.
Look, people have their hands out waiting.
It says something about who you all are. The star pupils are right here. I'm sorry. I got distracted.
Good. No, you're just fine. You know, it's funny because Ron has a quote, and actually it might be a slogan about serving people in extraordinary ways. And I do want to say this. In our openings, we were trying to find Ron. He was going around and shaking hands throughout the audience. Did anybody notice that? That's awesome. That speaks to, again, who we have here tonight. So with that being said, Ron, let's just jump into it. Okay. Tell us a little bit about your background. Where are you from?
Oh, man, I'm from this huge town in southeast Kansas, Baxter Springs.
Baxter Springs.
I mean, it's gigantic. Everybody's heard of it, right? Everybody's been there. You've been through it driving somewhere else. Okay, so a little cute town, you know, Mayberry, 4,000 people. It's a great place to grow up. But I ended up, after graduating from high school, I ended up at Wichita State.
All right, go Shockers.
Go Shockers.
What drew you to Wichita State?
What did you say?
What drew you to Wichita State? What was it about WSU that you wanted to be there and learn from there?
I didn't know much about Wichita State, but my brother lived in Wichita.
Okay.
And he was a CPA, and he worked with banks.
Oh, all right.
And he got me a job, and I was 18 years old, and was working at a bank so I could put myself through school.
Okay.
Because I had no shot of my parents being able to help, with that. So I started off with an old-fashioned thing, filing checks. Can you believe anybody would do that? That's how long ago. It was 45 years ago.
45 years ago. Explain to us what filing checks was. What was that job like? I'm serious.
I lasted 2 days.
You lasted?
I'm now dead serious. So they saw something else in me, and, I got a chance to work on doing other things. So.
Okay, that sounds good. Let's back up just a second. Before you got to WSU and just growing up in the town that you grew up in, were there examples of entrepreneurs, business owners that you really looked up to? Did you have any of those kind of mentors? How was entrepreneurship introduced to you?
Oh, I don't know. My dad worked for him. He was self-employed.
Okay.
He was in the construction business. And he was a bit of a one-man show. He probably had 2 or 3 people that would work for him occasionally. Yeah. And then slave labor, okay?
Oh, you?
As a child, right?
Right.
But I did see that firsthand because he had a slogan, don't cuss, call Gus. That was his
slogan?
On the side of his van. Don't cuss, call Gus.
That's
because
memorable.
He could repair anything, he could do anything, he could build anything. He built houses, he remodeled stuff. You name it, my dad could do it, but he was the ultimate, entrepreneur, I think.
That's right. See, we needed to know where that inspiration came from because it's going to show up a little later, right?
I think so.
All right. So fast forwarding back to the job that you had at the bank, what did they see in you? What did they see in you to allow you to go to your next move?
What did they see in me? That's interesting. They saw a kid that just worked his tail off, wasn't afraid of anything, had an intellectual curiosity. And I just happened to, this is, not everybody's blessed this way. At age 18, I found banking, and it just fit who I am. I'm a CPA, studied accounting at Wichita State. I love numbers. I'm not a great accountant, to be honest with you, but, can you only imagine in 45 years how many financial statements I've seen?
Oh,
can you only imagine? And I can look at a page of numbers, and if there's one out of place, I can spot it in about 2 seconds. It's just a giftedness.
Wow.
It's a lot like, musicians, right?
Right.
I know you like music.
Oh,
okay.
absolutely.
Some of them that are really, really talented, they can play the piano without ever having a lesson. And each one of you have a talent just like that, to be honest with you. I know it's in each one of you. I just happened to find a profession that I was uniquely gifted and talented to get started in at age 18.
That is incredible. That is an incredible start right there. Because again, not only are you building your foundation At that age, we're building the foundation that sets the stage for our lives. But you were able to do it a little bit more efficiently, maybe, because you were in a profession that accepted and supported your giftedness.
Exactly.
Okay. So what was the path like? What was the path to progression?
Well, there's nothing like going to work for a great, great company. This was the old Fourth National Bank, for you guys that remember that, and turned into Bank 4, and we sold 20 years ago, which turned out to be Bank of America.
Yes.
But, you know, when I went to work there, we were at $200 million in assets, and over my career, we grew it to $8 billion before it was sold.
How did you contribute to that growth?
Well, a lot of hard work. Well, it was at the time I went to work there, it was the largest bank in the state. We had terrific bankers. We had mentors and leaders that, you know, not only helped me, but they modeled what it looks like to be excellent in everything you do. So there's nothing like being around people that inspire you, that are doing the right thing. It's like being on a winning team versus being on a losing team. Okay, you can learn a lot from being on a losing team, what not to do. But there's nothing like just starting out at age 18 with a winning team.
Absolutely.
In every way.
Now, you asked me earlier, who comes to Startup Grind? Who is actually in the audience? So let's do an audience roll call, because my next question can tie to our audience. How many of you all are service partners, service professionals? You work in a law firm, accounting firms, things like that? Our support system is here. How many of you all are entrepreneurs? You own businesses, you started up? Absolutely. How many of you all are just here because you want to support Ron? Friends, family? Very good. We welcome you too.
Peterson didn't show up. I'm just saying.
There's some makers probably in the room. Anybody crafty? Anybody makers? I know you guys are here. How about some fashion forward people? People who are in fashion, like, okay, wonderful. That kind of gives you a crowd scan. Now back to the entrepreneurs. I'm sure there's people here who are probably looking for some funding, some financing, right? When you talked about that incredible environment that you worked in, it was an environment of excellence. What are some components that help make that environment excellent? What makes an excellent banking environment?
Well, it's people that had a clear vision. Okay, they hired terrific people, and they're able to execute in any kind of economic environment.
You guys hear that? For those seeking funding, you hear those components. Those are the kinds of institutions, the kinds of organizations you want to put on your team as well. So thank you for that. That also helped you to stay in that environment a little bit longer. You know, some people jump jobs, and that's fine. You can reinvent yourself that way, but you've stayed in the banking industry a long time. What's kept you there?
Kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. How long?
45.
Okay, so I am.
Okay, so I've got an interesting angle for y'all. Okay, there's a way to be entrepreneurial inside of big companies. To be honest with you, it's not just a new startup, whatever. And what I found is a platform in that first job I had with Bank 4. We had a vision, to be the biggest bank in the state and capture an industry that was rapidly consolidating. So I got a lot of chance to use my entrepreneurial spirit inside. You might think banking's not very exciting, but going from 200 million to 8 billion over a 20-year period with 65 acquisitions, I got to use all the entrepreneurial spirit that you could absolutely imagine.
Give us an example.
Well, okay, like an example of entrepreneurship, back in 1980, in the early 80s, when the consolidation of banking was happening, the way that worked in the state of Kansas is you could only have one bank with a location that was, Sherry House was like 2,500 feet away. I mean, it was a really restricted banking law, so we worked really hard in order to have multi-bank holding companies where you could grow by acquiring other banks. And I figured out a way that we could put an investor in to own 75.1% of the bank. We own 24.9, but we funded 95% of the purchase price because of the way we structured the transaction. So we got 5 deals done before we were actually legally able to start acquiring banks.
My God, did you guys just hear that? How did that thought even come about? What were some of the conditions or factors that helped you to put that together?
Well, it's having a management team, an ownership team that wanted to embrace doing something really special.
Doing something very special. And then what gave you the courage to go out and put that forward in the atmosphere, to actually speak that, to actually act upon it? It's one thing to think about things that are different than our current state of being. It's another to go after it and pursue it and put your name behind an idea.
Well, I have, okay, so we're in the process of fully implementing a strengths-based culture at our bank, okay? So we're using a lot of the Gallup research, and we have gone over the deep end. This is probably the most important thing I've done in 45 years of my career. And in fact, we have a full-time well-being champion that is probably one of the best strengths coaches in the country. He was a pediatric cardiologist for 30 years, Steve Allen. And Steve's, really helped us understand what our unique talents are. The Gallup, if you've taken that test, there's 34 talents, and it's all about the top 5. I don't care about my weaknesses. I don't care about anybody's weaknesses. All I care about is their talents.
Wow.
Okay, so to answer that question, in my top 5 talents, there's 2 that would answer that question. My number 1 is belief.
Okay.
My next one that would relate to this is I'm strategic.
Okay.
Okay, so it takes me a long time to get to the point of belief, but once I believe in something, you better watch out. You better watch out, because I have belief beyond what you can imagine. And it's not just belief in anything, it's belief in something I care deeply about. Once I get there, you better watch out. But I'm strategic.
Yeah.
Okay, so strategic means I see in the future, but it's just not some, cloud in the sky. It's an end point with a specific date.
Nice.
So
Very nice.
I've learned to know who I am and how God made me to be. And, it's pretty special, especially when I just forget about all those weaknesses that other people might see in me. But I focus on my top 5, and that's who I am.
That's powerful. Somebody needs to write that down. Because somebody's struggling right now with the idea of having to be perfect, that perfectionism, having to be, again, comprehensive, well-rounded. Those are our good words. But sometimes in our quest to overcome shortfalls, some of us get stuck there maybe. When in this situation, understanding and enhancing your strengths could move you forward, could propel you, stand in your strengths. Thank you.
One of the
for
most
that.
important things that I'll tell you tonight, okay, and this is absolutely based on Gallup research. They don't ask 5 people, they ask 5 million people, and these researchers are absolutely fabulous. Okay, so the chances of you and I having the top 5 strengths in the same order is 1 in 33 million. The chances of us having the top 8 strengths in the same order is 1 in 700 billion. It's 1 in 700 billion that we have our 8 strengths in the same order, meaning that you're so unique, it's not funny.
Yeah.
You're not like anybody else.
Yep.
You are one of a kind.
Yep.
And you know what? When we start comparing ourselves to somebody else, we got a problem.
Yes.
You need to start looking in the mirror about who God made me to be. And be that. Be more of who you are. And forget about your weaknesses. You know what? You've got giftedness that I can't even imagine.
You like numbers, and I don't.
I can celebrate who you are and not have to compare myself.
That's right.
Thinking, oh, I wish I was just like you. I'm not going to compare.
And it was that set of gifts, that set of talent that helped, again, as you're seeing an organizational culture that you love grow and be even more successful.
Exactly.
All right. So at some point, CrossFirst comes up. What happened in between you helping the bank grow to CrossFirst being an idea, just an idea?
Well, as you can imagine, I had an entrepreneurial bug in me. I wouldn't have called it that at the time, but I had a burning desire to do something purposeful.
But weren't you already? But weren't you already in the bank?
I was in the banking business,
Yeah.
but I always had to find some bigger purpose to it. Okay, so that always drove me from the very beginning. It gets back to that belief being number 1. Okay, so the story goes, I thought I would be at Bank 4 my entire career. I mean, we were on a roll when the board and the shareholders decided to sell the place, so you got to get a fresh start. And my kids were in high school, so I ended up going down the street to Intrust Bank, which was a polar opposite of what Bank 4 was, to be honest with you. Bank 4, publicly traded, growth, all that kind of stuff. Intrust had been around for 100 and some years. I became president of the bank when They kicked me out, which happens in an acquisition. And it was quite a different experience where the Chandler family has been, they don't own the place, but they have been in charge of it for 100 years. I think I was the 5th non-Chandler president of the bank.
Wow.
And it was during a time of what spurred a lot of my entrepreneurship was back in the mid-90s, okay, internet banking, okay, came about, right? Seems like it's routine today. I mean, they barely had ATMs back then. Okay, this little known fact that having entrepreneurship inside of a bigger company, the way this thing works out is that just so happens that the internet was on fire, and we thought, gosh, wouldn't it be great to be ahead of the game in internet banking? And we hired a development team in Houston, Texas, to develop the first on-time, real-time internet bank in the world. And we did it.
You did it.
1997, we launched it, and it was not for the faint at heart.
Right.
But again, it's this feeling of a bigger purpose, okay, doing something really special, making a difference in banking that it was really terrific.
That's visionary, obviously, taking something, an idea, and actualizing it maybe even before its time, or on the cusp of its time. What was the challenge in that? Even though it was something great to do, it needed to be done, it was possibly necessary, what was the challenge in that time for you?
Well, it's gathering the resources to go after a vision and see it achieved. I mean, there was a lot, my gosh, the road, can you only imagine how windy it was? Cybersecurity, back when cybersecurity wasn't even a word that you used, right? Finding a development team that was, willing to be on the cutting edge, that kind of thing. But it was terribly intellectually stimulating, to be honest with you.
How did you hold people to purpose?
Oh, you create a big enough idea, you're going to get people to follow you.
Okay.
But you got to have success. I mean, there's got to be success that comes along with it.
What was one of the first indicators of success for you all there?
Oh, the day we launched that thing.
Okay.
Yeah. No, during my time at Intrust, honestly, it was a sleepy bank. It's a family-owned bank, and we took it from $1 billion to $3.5 billion during the 10 years that I was there. Now we had a major competitor, Bank 4, that was imploding because, the big banks do what big banks do, so that was helpful. But, instead of an acquisition strategy, it was an organic growth strategy, and we took advantage of disruption in the market, which you all ought to think about. You ought to look for those opportunities. You got to be patient. Opportunity does not come by appointment. If you want to write down something, opportunity does not come by appointment. Opportunity comes when opportunity comes, and you got to be smart enough and wise enough to know that's one that's worth pursuing.
That's right. Again, this is on the path to coming up with CrossFirst.
Exactly.
So then, CrossFirst. Let's jump ahead.
Okay, so now, you're probably going to want me to talk about something different than banking in just a minute. Okay, so the way this worked out, at age 47, 6,045 days ago, I found out I had cancer. Okay, so I was 5 years into my tenure at Intrust Bank. And, I had this, burning desire to, do something really, important. And so that changed all my dials. Okay, and so one of the things I did during that period, I had lymphoma. I ended up having 6 months worth of chemo and a bunch of radiation treatments. At age 47, the first prognosis wasn't good. I worked on my will just a bit, and I got all my financial affairs in order, and honestly didn't know, about tomorrow. Wow. And this is the start of the story, to be honest with you, the real story. And the real story is that when you find out you have a death sentence, okay, which is what I call it, whenever you talk to somebody on the phone, it's interesting how the conversation changes if you don't know about tomorrow. Yeah. Okay, so I found myself, when I talked to one of my friends, hanging up the phone, I said, I love you. Yeah. I love you. Because I didn't know whether I was ever going to see that person again. Yeah. And so every dial on my dashboard, changed, as you can imagine. 6,045 days, I'm still here.
Amen. So
the story goes, Intrust was very kind to me to let me get through, this little journey. And, we were pretty sure that the chemo and radiation was going to work, but I didn't know, whether my life was going to be shortened. I mean, that stuff is awful. Okay, so it's just awful. And so I had a son who's very, very entrepreneurial. I had him tested just out of high school. And when he tested, it was at Ames. The organization was called Ames. It was out of Dallas, Texas. They'd been around for 50 years. They were absolutely fabulous. And the guy came back after 2 days of testing, and Matt somewhat struggled in school. He wasn't as interested in it. He came back and said, hey, guess what? You know, your son's not going to be a lot of things, but what he's going to be is going to be really good at it. And whatever he really has a passion for, he's going to turn it into a business, and he's going to own his own small business.
Okay.
This is my son, Matt. I said, okay now. Matt went from feeling defeated to he was, 12 feet tall and invincible. There was nothing more important than my son, Matt, who's 6'3", totally personable, creative kid, today with a wife and 3 kids, living in Kansas City.
Yeah.
We knew that he was going to be a business owner. So then all we had to figure out was what was that opportunity that was going to come along that we were going to seize together. Mm-hmm. And there was no doubt, my son Matt, Ron Baldwin, were going to seize that opportunity together. Okay, so we started looking at what is he passionate about? What is burning inside of Matt Baldwin that's unbelievable?
Yep. Okay,
so we thought he became an expert snowboarder. He liked all kinds of outdoor stuff, and he always was very fashionable, good-looking kid, So we ended up buying a condo. He was an expert, pro, snowboarder, that whole bit in Breckenridge. But, you have to work 3 jobs, and he was a waiter, and then he worked in a clothing store and got to know all the pro, snowboarders. Mm-hmm. And he had an affection for clothing. I said, right now, let's figure that out. So he did happen to meet his love of his life at Kanakuk Camps as a counselor, and they ended up getting married, and I said, I got one more sponsorship in me. How about the Fashion Institute in L.A.? So we sent Matt and Emily to L.A. To learn the clothing business, right? And so they ended up moving back to Kansas City and opened up a clothing store.
That's doing pretty well, right?
Yeah, the name of the store was Standard Style Boutique. And, it just so happens he married Emily, who was a little cute little KU Pi-Fi that studied fashion, one page of one glamour magazine at a time over 20 years. All right, so then, this is part of the entrepreneurial experience. It may seem like I'm running off of
It's called the fullness. We're getting the fullness.
Yeah, well, this is the story that's really kind of cool. It's a lot cool. And so, I became his mentor, coach, business partner, funder of, this big dream. And the dream was to get in the apparel business, clothing business. And it was back when denim was just hotter than can be. Okay, so we opened a store 13 years ago in Kansas City, in Leawood Town Center, a cute little 1,600-foot store. And the next thing was, hey, how about let's just see what this thing can do. The second year into it, 1,600 feet, they had $2.8 million in sales, and they made $452,000. Kabam! Now they work 90 hours a week.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and then they had little Henley, my first grandson. And so I'm thinking, man, there must be something here. And we decided that we would, because of the exposure I had to the internet, I said, oh, hey, Matt, why don't we think about, putting our store on the net? Okay, so that was in 2003. And we got exclusive distribution on all these really cool, fun lines, right?
Amazing.
And so I'm sitting in Wichita. I'd leave work at 5 o'clock, drive up there and have meetings, help them. Then I'd be back at 2 o'clock in the morning, go to work the next day. And then little Henley came along. And, after 10 years being president of Intrust, I said goodbye. And Cindy and I moved to Kansas City to help grow a clothing business.
Listen to that. Banking, clothing.
Clothing is a lot harder than banking. Excuse me, I'm not shitting you. I'm not. I am not. I'm not kidding you at all. Wow. All right, so now, I've got an entrepreneurial son, and I'm the chief sponsor. And honestly, I had big-time passion for Matt and Emily and little Henley. I had no passion for clothing. No surprise. Okay,
So what was the bridge?
but you know what? It was so important because I still didn't know how short my life would be, and I wanted to make sure he understood the business side of that entrepreneurial experience. We had 63 employees. We had a warehouse full of designer goods. We had search engine optimizers. We had models. We had makeup artists. We were selling the coolest stuff on the planet. Things are cooking along, you know, I'm helping with that.
Right.
Okay, and so about the time I moved to Kansas City and said, look, banking is going to become secondary for now, I figured somebody would call me and say, hey, you know, want to do something. That call came 2 weeks after I got there.
Okay.
We had a group that was starting a bank in town, and they said, look, we'd like for you to help us. And I said, look, my day job is clothing. My night job, I'll be happy to be a consultant as you start a bank, but that's all I'm going to do. So they paid me a lot of money just to help them, right? And so I got two entrepreneurial things going at once. I would not suggest that for anything. Anyway.
Oh, there's some jugglers in this room. Remember the entrepreneur, we're juggling, right? There's some who are juggling that day job and then that passion as well. So that juggling is absolutely real. So you get approached to help build something as you are, again, finding purpose, holding on, and not only interacting with your son in a meaningful way, but also helping them grow a successful clothing business with an e-commerce aspect in a cluttered market. That says something, those breakthroughs.
Maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know.
So what did the conversations look like? I mean, let's start a bank. We want you to help us start a bank.
Well, I was just doing it on a consulting basis, and I'd been doing it so long, it was pretty easy for me to help them because it wasn't my day job. And so we got 89 days into this consulting job, and I figured out that the money they raised, they were paying themselves far too much of the capital raise. And I wasn't going to have that, and I certainly wasn't going to raise money for it with them dragging money out the back door. That is not going to happen. Okay, so I said, you know, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to go back to doing the clothing full time. Well, in the meantime, I had people that I'd recruited for the management team. And the day after I said, I'm not going to do the consulting anymore, the whole management team quit.
I bet, because that was your word that brought him in there.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
And so I felt the pain of, oh my gosh, trusting, you know, fulfilling my commitments is everything to me.
Right.
And so it took about 2 days, and they said, this is the management team that now are without jobs, wife, kids, you know, the whole bit. And they came to me and said, hey, Ron, you're going to help them. Why don't you just do it yourself? So I said, oh my God, I can't turn this down because, I was thinking about those kids.
Right.
And those families.
And
I had, you know, yeah. So I said, okay, let's go. This is May 16th, you know, 2000. It was 2006. Okay, the clothing business started May 16th, 2003. My daughter was born on May 16th. We got so many May 16th stories. It's crazy, but that was the day that they approached me. And so this is the way it went. To be honest with you, we took out a blank piece of paper, and we got to design from scratch what the ideal bank would be that would fit with the greater purpose of not only who I am, but what I believe in.
So did you catch that? How many of us have sketched ideas? But listen, the greater idea, the greater purpose, keep going. This is relevant here. Keep going.
Okay, so it became very, very clear to me, and I've known this forever, especially with a death sentence that I had survived, okay, that if I was going to spend my time on doing anything, it was going to be involved with extraordinary service, serving people in extraordinary ways. Now, people talk about service. Right. I'm talking about extraordinary service.
What's the difference, Ron?
Okay, so I'll wait for this one. I got a little prop.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is the way extraordinary service rolls. Okay, so God,
we're good. I've got you.
Are you okay?
We're good.
Okay, so what's extraordinary about banking? I mean, banking's banking, right? We all have the same products. Today we have all the same technology. You know what the difference is? It's people. It's Mike, it's Melissa, it's Steve, it's Tom, it's everybody here. That's the only differentiator you have, Okay? So some people say extraordinary service. Oh, yeah, you process a teller transaction right. Oh, no, 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 no. Serving is giving. Serving is giving. Okay? When you think about what we might be able to give back, and this motivates me like you can't believe. There's three things you can give. It's an old cliche. It's time, it's talent, and it's treasure. Okay, you know what the most expensive thing we give? It's our time.
It's time.
Nicole, if I wanted to buy a day of your life from you, and look, I'm counting my bonus days. I don't know. What would you sell a day of your life for? $1 trillion.
That's real.
You know, you just put a price tag on one day of your life. And because I was counting my bonus days, at the intersection of extraordinary and service is another human being giving their time. So when I walk in here, why wouldn't I go say hi to as many people as you can? You're taking your time. You're spending the most valuable thing in the world to come hear me talk. And if you don't think I'm not jazzed to hopefully give you something back, I mean, that's what I'm jazzed about. I'm taking one of my bonus days, 6,045 to be here, and I'm proud to be here, and thank you. Thank you for being here. So that's just the first one. In fact, we got this funny little thing that we do. Hey, I got a deal for you. Let me pick on somebody. We'll go over here. What's your name? Ashton. Okay, Ashton, I got a deal for you. Tonight, you're going to open an account at CrossFirst Bank, and we're going to deposit $86,400 in your account. Okay? Okay, so I got strings attached. You can't save it, you can't invest it, you got to spend it. And, okay, so here's the deal. I'm going to keep doing it, but you don't know when I'm going to stop. Is that a deal? How's that? Okay, so what are you going to do with the first $86,000? You spend it or lose it. What are you going to do? New car? No. What are you going to do?
Grow myself.
You're going to do what with it?
Grow myself. Like invest in my knowledge and learning.
Okay, so you're going to buy some, I mean, you got to spend it that day.
Yeah.
Okay, so is that an online course, a new computer? It's what? Okay, but you're going to spend it on that, right? Okay, 30 days into this, I've done it 30 days in a row. Now you've had to spend $3.3 million. Okay, so now what are you spending the next $86,000 on when you've already had to give away, spend $3.3 million? All right, you give it away, right? Yeah. A year into it. A year into it? Whoa. How fun's that? But I'm not going to tell you when I'm going to stop doing it. Because you see, 86,400 is the number of seconds in a day.
Yes, it is.
You get to spend 86,400 seconds today, and we just heard the seconds in the day are worth more than money. So what are you going to do with it? So if you're starting an entrepreneurial experience, you better be passionate about serving somebody and spending your time on something that makes a difference.
That's really, really good.
86,400. Okay, so serving is giving of your time. You got that now, right? Serving is also giving of your talent. Okay, we just heard that you're unique. You're different than any other human being. 1 in 700 billion chance that we're the same. So, hey, you know what? You better figure out what your talents are. When you invest in your talent, it becomes a strength. Just having a talent, if you don't invest in it, doesn't mean anything. Hey, I might be a wonderful musician, but if I never play the piano, it doesn't make a difference. If you invest in your talent, it equals strength. And when you're operating out of your strengths, you get near perfect performance. Talents times investment is a strength. You operating out of your strength every day, near perfect performance. What's extraordinary? CrossFirst bankers know exactly what their talents are, and we're investing We're helping them invest in their talents. And therefore, when you come to CrossFirst Bank, that extraordinary service promise, near perfect performance from everybody in that place.
Now you have the meaning behind that statement. The meaning behind that statement. Last question from us on this side before we open it up here. If you haven't had a chance to tweet your question, you will want to tweet your question. Trust me, tonight especially, you will want to tweet your question. Remember, I told you that, okay? All right. Of everything, well, two things. Number one, we have the culture piece, the passion behind the piece of growing the bank, but where does the bank stand now? Just so they can know what success looks like from you.
Well, one, I couldn't have, I told you I see in the future specific dates and stuff. Well, I couldn't have made this stuff up. Okay, so today we're 10 years in. We're going to have our 10th birthday on October 1st of 07, right? Mm-hmm. We're $2.5 billion in size.
Billion.
We're in 5 markets. We're in Kansas City, Wichita, Oklahoma City, Tulsa, and Dallas. We have an energy group. Those are the little 6 engines for our company. Mm-hmm. We have a 5-year plan to grow it to about $10 billion. We have 1,265 shareholders. We have one very small private equity investor. All the investors are people just like you all. Just like you all.
Amazing. And when you think about, out of all of the experiences that you've had to bring you to this point, the grind, what would you say is paramount to people overcoming challenges, overcoming that grind?
Having a fire burning in your belly so hot that you can't not do what you have in your heart that you should do. If you don't have it in your heart, if it's not a burning desire to go do that, don't do it. Because there's going to be a lot of roadblocks. There's going to be a lot of obstacles. It's economy, it could be people, it could be a million things. But if you got a burning desire in your heart to do something bigger, do something what you're uniquely gifted and talented to do, you will win. Now, you have to have some capital along the way. So.
Ron, thank you for sharing with us tonight. Thank you very much. Let's give him a hand. So Jacob is going to open up our Q&A today, but before you do, because something special is going to happen, I need to set up the special. Is that okay? Okay, 40 seconds. Here we go. This is the longest I've ever talked on stage besides the introduction and questions. All right, there's a book called Rules of the Red Rubber Ball by Kevin Carroll. And in his book, Kevin Carroll writes, and I quote, "Each day contains 86,400 seconds. That's 86,400 opportunities to chase, kick, catch, and run after your red rubber ball. What is your red rubber ball? Your red rubber ball is the thing that grabs your soul. It's the thing that captures your attention. It's that thing you do when no one tells you what to do. When you're alone, in your room, on the playground of your mind. It is your dream. It is what you dream. And your dream can become your life's work if you let it. And you must let it." Tonight, that was a word from Kevin Carroll's red rubber ball, but Ron has a yellow ball that he is going to be giving out to those who have asked questions. Jacob, questions?
First question comes in from Lockwood Design. Any regrets, anything you'd like to do differently?
Okay, so is there anything I do differently? The answer is no. I think, I'm very serious about my faith. I think I'm on a plan that's bigger than what I could imagine. I can't take credit for anything. The biggest problems I've had is where I've made the biggest strides in me as being a really good human being and being a better businessman. Mm-hmm. So I cherish when I fell down and skinned my knees, because that's where I had the biggest opportunity to learn. So I would not change a thing. Now, I naturally look through the windshield a lot more than I look through the rearview mirror. In fact, when we celebrate at the end of a year, okay, I look back and celebrate for a moment, but I just can't help keep looking through that windshield about what's next.
Good question. Who asked that question?
It was Lockwood Design.
Can you
Where
stand
is
up?
the founder of Lockwood Design at?
All right.
Hey, get a ball. Sorry I hit you. You know, I get the rest of. Hey, you know what the significance of the tennis ball? You can imagine. You know,
It's a
I'm
soft
talking about
ball.
serving other people, right?
All right, next question comes in from the folks from Malibu Creative. Malibu Creative, raise your hand. Where you at? Right here, this guy. So the question that he has is, what did the clothing business specifically teach you about business?
The clothing business? You know, I actually learned what it was to be a mentor to somebody starting a business, and I also learned what it was to be the investor behind that. Okay, we talked about some people being angel investors, that whole thing. Okay, that was an interesting balance. I wasn't the day-to-day operator. Okay, now it was my son, and I was terribly motivated by that. But I also learned what it felt like to be an investor in businesses, early stage investors in businesses, where it's not a straight line. Yeah. It's choppy, to be honest with you. So you know what? I learned that, life happens. Struggles happen. You have, as much as I want to predict the future, I have to accept it and react to it and support it. And it was terribly important for me to learn to trust my son to execute and operate without me having my hands on the wheel. It felt like when I was teaching him to drive a car. I don't know how many times I jammed my foot against the floorboard when that happened, but it was important. Now, small commercial, Baldwin is a brand. He was GQ Designer of the Year, and he's up for the Vogue Fashion Fund to be a finalist. So he's pretty good at it. Now I found another investor that's got the money to really take it to the next. We're turning it into a national brand, which is really kind of fun.
The next question comes in from Rebecca at ICT Honeybee. Where is Rebecca at? Right over here. Rebecca's question was, what would you do if you were given $84,600 to spend?
It's pretty good. You can't invest it, right? You know what I would do? Same rules apply. Well, I'd start giving it away to my favorite charities. And it's the charities that have the highest ROI because of the impact they have on people's lives. My most favorite charity that I'm giving to right now is a place called Global Orphan Project. It's based in Kansas City. They have orphanages in 22 countries. They have a manufacturing facility in Haiti. They're totally into orphan prevention by having a for-profit business that gives mom a job. And if mama's got a job, she'll never give up her child for adoption.
This question comes in from Andrew Goff from Reverie Coffee Roasters. Andrew, where are you at? He's way in the
have to
back,
walk
so
up,
you may have to
Andrew.
get a really good arm on that one. So the question that Andrew asked, if you could choose your age forever, what age would you choose and why?
Okay, well, I've enjoyed every stage of my life, and it's different seasons. I'd probably pick right where I'm at right now, to be honest with you. I've got, I'm healthy, thankfully.
Yep.
I'm appreciative. I've got a wife of 41 years. I got 2 kids, 6 grandkids. I've got a flourishing, bank with wonderful people. I don't know that, if I could freeze this, it'd be great. But I know you can't. But I've enjoyed every stage of life, and I can look back and reflect on, I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. But now's a pretty good time, to be honest with you. And not everything is perfect going on right now. Okay, we got growing pains at the bank like you cannot believe. How about we finished the year at 210 employees, and we want to finish next year at 320. So yeah, it never goes away. I'm awake most nights 2 or 3 times thinking about stuff. I'll just be honest with you.
Andy, come up and get your ball.
Gotta come
You
get
need your
your
yellow
ball.
ball.
Tennis, serving people in extraordinary ways. Do everybody kind of get the symbolism?
This next question comes from Matt Colburn. Matt, where you at? Over here. Matt, his question for you was, how did you give your time to early customers when you were first starting up?
Say that again.
How did you give your time to customers when you're first starting up?
Okay, so we're a growth company. 10 years ago, we're standing at the door, we had no customers whatsoever. The first customer was everything. I mean, you talk about getting covered up with service. I mean, we had the initial startup employees, we had 14 of them. The first customer came in, I mean, they were covered up. Okay, so really what I fundamentally believe that every life has a story. Every life has a story if you take time to read it. Now, the bank we have is not mass market retail. It is not wealth management. We're banking businesses and professionals. That's who we are. We're very much a boutique bank. We don't have thousands and thousands of customers, but the customers we have, we know them. And so that perfectly matches up with who I am. It's all about spending time with people and getting to know their story and caring about who they are. And that's the differentiator. So there you go. We'll try to do a better job of throwing it.
This question comes from Jennifer McDonald with Jenny Dawn Sellers. She is right here in front. She wants to know what your other top 3 strengths, according to Strength Finders, were. And in fact, hers is actually strategic and belief too, as well, what her top 2 are.
All right, so the other ones were connectedness. I see, in fact, one of the things we do at the bank is, one of my friends who's a really great speaker, he said, hey, Ron, you ever thought about using a crossword puzzle? Has anybody worked a 1,000-piece puzzle? You know, and 1,000-piece puzzle, 200 of them are blue sky, and they look the same, and you're trying. But that's what it feels. That's what it feels like to build the bank. To be honest with you, it's like a giant jigsaw puzzle. Okay, but for somehow, the way I'm wired is I see the 1,000 pieces, and I can fit them all together. That's one of my talents. The other one is responsibility. If I say I'm going to do something, you just as well you can. I don't know if you guys got tattoos. I want to put it right on my head. Whatever I say I'm going to do is tattooed right there. Connected, and I'm an achiever. Once a goal is set, and once I believe in it, right, Steve. So anyway, that's it. Those are the top 5. Thank you for asking.
This question comes from at Smash Dev's shop. I'm not sure the name of the person, but Smash Dev. Where are you at, Smash Dev? Right here, way in the back. The question they have, is it possible to serve too much?
No, that is what we're called to do. I can translate in every activity that I do into serving somebody else, to be honest with you. That's just the way I get up and think about it. I don't think there's been a dollar been made without somebody eventually getting served. Okay, so, you know, there's, serving is everything. You know, it's biblical in nature. I mean, the ultimate servanthood, you know, is found in biblical principles, and that's the way kind of I get up every day and believe. And we're called to serve others, and I don't think you can overdo that. In fact, I find the more I'm served, the more happy I am, and the more fulfilled I am. And you know, giving, if you expect something in return, is not really giving, it's a transaction. So when you give of yourself, you can, if it's really giving, you can't expect anything in return. But you know what? If you do that with nothing in return, it will pay back tenfold what you've invested. Great question.
Now, the last question from the crowd comes from KingFit. We have Miguel over here at this table right in front of the other one. And talking about serving is, how have you and your employees spent time volunteering within the community?
Okay, so we didn't get, you stopped me short, so I get to answer this one. Serving is giving of your time, giving of your talent. I've talked about both of those, but giving of your treasure, right? Giving of your treasure. So what we do at CrossFirst Bank is, you know, somebody comes in and asks us for money, we just don't give the money away. Oh, by the way, we don't support United Way. Now, you might have got sucked into it and I don't know about it, but we don't do that. But you know what we do? If one of our employees has a passion for something, we're going to support that. We're going to allow them to have time to pursue what they're interested in. Because don't forget, 1 in 700 billion chance that we're the same. So if we just help people pursue what they're passionate about, let them have time on the job to go do that kind of stuff, and oh, by the way, support them financially. And then the killer thing that we've done, the best thing, one of the best things I've ever done, is if you're an employee at CrossFirst Bank and you have a neighbor that's in need and you're willing to help them when they're in need, we'll match up to $500, whatever you do for another human being in your sphere of influence. And we won't ask one question. If you gave $500, we'll match it. We're encouraging you to give back to other human beings. That's what we do.
The final question that I want to have as a Startup Grind community is, what can we as a community do to serve you, Ron?
Hey, you know what? Banks and the places where we do work, where we work, we play, we raise families, the healthier the community is, the healthier our bank will be. So what you could do is just what you're doing tonight. We need a healthy, vibrant, growing, innovative marketplace where people are having not only success, but hyper success. That's what we need to do as a bank. So, hey, keep doing what you're doing. Detroit, Michigan, I'd hate to be a bank there. I mean, it was flat on its face. I'd much rather be in Wichita, Kansas. We got a lot going on. We got so many positive things going on. It's crazy. But if the community grows and the business community grows, we will flourish as a bank, I can promise you. So the answer to that is, hey, just do this. Do more of this. Do more of this.
Let's give Ron a round of applause. And as a token of our appreciation for the Startup Grind community, we actually have an entrepreneur herself, Lacey Leatherman with Heartland Heritage, who is also in fashion, and she wanted to give you some of her product line right here. So thank you very much. Well, let's give Ron one more round of applause, and will you hang out? And everybody loves to take pictures, so would you mind hanging out that took pictures with you at the Startup Grind banner?
I would love that. Anybody gets their picture taken and get one of these.
There you go, guys. Everybody gets a gift.
I only have 35 of these, but I'd like to see them all gone. So if anybody wants to Startup Grind stress ball,